SpaceWatchers, I'm Emma, the editor-in-chief of SpaceWatch Global, and this is a new episode of Space Café Radio, your radio channel dedicated to emerging trends and live conferences in the space sector. Hello, SpaceWatchers, and welcome back to another fantastic episode of Space Café Radio. And our guest today doesn't need an introduction. She's an extremely famous personality in the space sector. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce you Shelli Brunswick, the CEO and founder of SB Global LLC and also a motivational speaker. Shelli, how are you doing and welcome?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for inviting me to join you for this dynamic discussion.
It's a pleasure. So Shelli and I have been knowing for a few years. She has recently wrote a very interesting article on Forbes. The title was Navigating Disruption in 2025, Space-Inspired AI and Cybersecurity Strategies for Boards. And she also wrote a book. So I was extremely interested in trying to understand what led her to write this article, what led her to write the book. So maybe, Shelli, before we just dive into the article, maybe you can explain us what's your backstory.
Wonderful. I'll just share with your audience that I like to say my journey has 4 chapters, and that's helped to create a very dynamic background and understanding. So my first chapter, I was an enlisted airman in the U.S. Air Force, and I was personnel. I was a HR, human resources specialist. So I was not in the space industry, but I did that for 12 years as an enlisted airman, stationed in Turkey and Germany. And then I went to school at night. I took advantage of tuition assistance and went to school at night, completed my bachelor's and master's degree, and applied to become an officer in the U.S. Air Force. And I was accepted to become an officer, and that opened the door because the Air Force made me a space acquisition officer or space procurement. So I bought the things that related to satellites and ground stations and rockets. And so you can say that my entry into the space industry was somewhat traditional, but there were some untraditional parts to it as well. And I'll save those for us to talk about more later. And after a dynamic career in the Air Force, doing space acquisition, teaching about space and acquisition at the Defense Acquisition University, as well as working on Capitol Hill as a budget and appropriation liaison, I then retired and became the chief operating officer at Space Foundation. So that was fantastic, leading a dynamic team, putting on one of the world premier events called Space Symposium, also delivering educational programs around the world to increase more people coming into the space sector. And after 9 incredible years, I left Space Foundation and started my own company in 2024, which is called SB Global LLC, where I'm now a motivational speaker, author, and strategist. So that gives you a little bit about my background and now why I've started writing a Forbes Technology Council article every month, as well as the book, What Space Got to Do with It, 10 Life Lessons for Personal Growth.
Fantastic. What a life, Shelli. What a path and what a career. Congratulations. So moving to the article was titled Navigating Disruption in 2025, Space-Inspired AI and Cybersecurity Strategies for Boards. So my first question for you is, why for boards? Why did you decide to craft this article for boards of directors? Did you identify some gaps, some common mistakes, or some areas of vulnerabilities?
I think when we think about bringing on new technology, and you can even think about the space technology, from the Apollo era to today, we're using space technology in every part of our life. We're even using space technology to do this broadcast today because telecommunications was all from the Apollo era. So it's really looking at how technology is helping society evolve, not only in that sector, like the space sector, but how space is an enabler in every sector. And so when I looked at how space has transformed industries based on the technology, I then looked at the next technology that's rapidly evolving, and that's artificial intelligence. And whenever we see new technologies, we really need to think about leadership. So there's different levels of leadership. There's board leadership, which is really strategic. There's the C-level suite, the chief executive officer, chief operating officer, and so on. And they're looking at not only strategy, but implementation. And then you have frontline supervisors. And so I started looking at that board level because I serve on several board of directors. And board of directors are about governance. So they always say it's nose in, but hands out. So it's really about providing good governance, strategy, and foresight. And as I looked at some of the articles from Deloitte and McKinsey and the DCRO Risk Governance Institute, what I came out from was according to Deloitte, 50% of boards are not prepared for AI and artificial intelligence as it relates to the boards they're serving on and the companies they're serving. So 50% are not ready. And so I really thought we should dive into how can boards prepare for AI? Because not only is AI in the space sector, as we're doing autonomous navigation to Mars, or the rovers on Mars are doing autonomous activities with AI, but AI is transforming through all the industries, all the way to retail, such as Lowe's and Home Depot and stores that we go into every day. So how is AI impacting all these sectors? And it really starts with board leadership looking at that AI and emerging technology.
And how do you think space can contribute?
That's fabulous. What I really like to be is that space person that helps create how concepts bridge into the general public. And so I always look at things through that lens of space. So as I looked at this article, again, I looked at how space is already using artificial intelligence, whether it's for space missions or also for things that happen here on Earth. We're doing Earth observation. Satellites are looking at environment, agriculture. So we're looking already at how AI is already part of the space industry. We also look at it for the U.S. Space Force and how you're using space and using layered protection, because those assets are now on the grid. They could be hacked. So how are we implementing cybersecurity measures to protect our space assets? And then I transfer that into how it can be used throughout every industry. So obviously every board should be thinking about AI or emerging technology. So they can put it on the board agendas. They can create a technology committee to evaluate technology. And then they can also look at the cybersecurity for that company or organization that they serve on a board. Is it rigorous? Does it have multi-layered defense? Are they looking at the ethical use of that artificial intelligence? And so I took those things that we're already doing in the space industry and just highlighted how it could be used in every industry and help boards to better understand that AI is not difficult. It's just a matter of making sure that they're making it a priority for the companies that they're serving on boards for.
So do you have a sector in mind, a specific sector in mind that, in your opinion, should apply these criteria sooner rather than later?
Actually, every board should evaluate how emerging technology can be used to enhance that company or organization that they're serving on. Does it create better products, services? Does it enhance the customer experience? Does it promote the opportunities for all their sales associates and employees to make their lives better? And they should be also looking at what is the competition doing and how do they want to make sure that they stay relevant and stay competitive, and what's the return on investment? So boards really have to evaluate what's best for their sector, their industry, their company, but they have to at least start by talking about it.
It seems that you propose a way to become more solid and more stable, but at the same time without losing the impact and the fast forward energy. Am I correct in interpreting this in your article?
Absolutely. We don't have to disrupt everything. I did bring one of my friend's books from Roger Spitz, Disrupt with Impact. And what I want to highlight is that everything is going to be disrupted. Everything is disrupted. You know, we had horse and carriages, we went to cars, now we have airplanes. So disruption is the constant evolution of technology, of business. And so what's really important is you need to keep the essence of what makes your business, organization, or even yourself unique. But technology is a tool that helps you enhance and become better and more empowered to deliver things to the customers that you want to reach, the constituents you want to reach, the audience you want to reach, whether you're in media, whether you're in policy making, or whether you're in a retail organization or customer service organization. So you really have to adapt that technology, but your essence of what your business model is still unique. It's just that you're using different tools to help you become even better.
Fantastic. Of course, it's a means to an end technology somehow. And this, I think, is a perfect hook for your book, because in your book is exactly what you do. You are elaborating on your life experience in the space technology to move on a different stage. So in fact, the title is What Space Got to Do with 10 Life Lessons for Personal Growth. And I will be very interested in understanding the genesis on this book, where it comes from, how the idea sparkled. What's the journey of this book?
Well, it's really my life journey that I shared earlier. Throughout my journey, I've been blessed to have amazing mentors, champions, coaches that have helped me And as I've been in this latter half of my career, I've been able to mentor and coach others, whether they're individuals or companies or boards, as we talked about. And every time I've coached somebody or given a talk, people have come up afterwards or said, do you have this written down somewhere? Do you have a book? And what really culminated it was I gave a commencement address at Colorado State University, Pueblo, and I used the first 3 lessons in the book because the president of the university at that time said, I really need you to keep it real in your commencement address. These students may not know what they're doing tomorrow. Keep it real. And so that really allowed me to say, let me write down some of these things I've learned. And like the first lesson is, and I even talked about it a little bit, was take advantage of opportunities. I enlisted in the U.S. Air Force right out of high school. And what I did is I took advantage of that tuition assistance. I went to school at night, and I was able to complete my bachelor's and master's degrees, which allowed me to then apply to become an officer in the Air Force. So that first lesson was just take advantage of opportunities. And what I looked at was not only my experience, though, because I have one focus, I'm a military officer, U.S. citizen in the space industry. That may not resonate with everyone around the world. So what I also did was I've interviewed 200 global thought leaders from all regions of the world, South America, Africa, Middle East, Europe, India, Australia. And then I interviewed a diversity of ages, men and women, but also backgrounds. So not everybody that I interviewed is in the space sector. Some of them are former presidents of countries, policymakers, entrepreneurs, inventors, organizational leaders. And then I took 30 of those interviews and put them in this book, in 3 in each chapter. So not only do I share my story and how that lesson learned applied to me, but then I've used 3 different examples of how that lesson applied to each of those individuals to show that these lessons learned will not only apply to somebody in the space sector, but they can apply to anybody, no matter where you are, what industry you want to be in, however your goals are and how you want to pursue them. So for me, it was really about how do I empower the next generation and ensure that space is for everyone and not just for some people, and that the book would actually be for everyone.
So there is a very important coaching component in your book. What's, in your opinion, the most important coach advice that you can be, if you have to choose one among the 10 lessons that you decided to put in the book?
Well, it's not exactly a certain lesson, but what I will say is it's about being a lifelong learner. And it ties into what we talked about in the article as well. Technology is changing. We all need to continue to reskill, upskill, learn new things. And that's what this book is about. It's 10 life lessons, but it's about being a lifelong learner, being open to reading those lessons. So whether you're just starting your career or you're mid-career or you're in a later part of your career, you could still read this book, enjoy it, and agree with the ideas. Or you could say, oh, I think maybe I have some other ideas that I'd like to share. So I think the one skill that we all need to take on is to be lifelong learners and be passionate about continuing to grow and develop.
And I suppose you try to make it quite real life because these are life lessons. So did you try to make some case study or an example of practical ways in which younger pupils or students or just people interested can actually translate your suggestion into practical applications?
Absolutely. I wanted to treat this book like it was somebody I was talking to. Because again, that's what people said. Do you have this written down? Is there a place I can find this information? So it talks about my journey and then these 3 other global thought leaders. But then at the end, I call it turning insight into action. It helps give steps that somebody can take to take that next step to help them develop that skill or that tool. And so there's lessons, there's books, there's webinars, there's free courses. So not only does it tell you what you can do next, but it also has a resource section where you can find those links to go to those activities. So although maybe I can't meet with everyone in person and share these things, my goal was to make sure that people could buy the book or the Kindle download ebook and be able to take that next step on their own.
Are you planning to present it live so that this can be sort of live coaching workshop somehow?
Absolutely. That's something I'm looking at. I'm considering creating a companion book or a workbook because a lot of people I've spoken to that have been reading the book said they've been taking a lot of notes. So that makes me realize we probably need a workbook. So I love getting people's feedback. So please send me your feedback about the book. The other thing I've looked at is I am doing some public speaking where I'll be out talking about these lessons to high school students and college students and young professionals. and then taking questions. And I'm also starting to work on the second book, which is called What's Space Got to Do with It? An Interstellar Guide to Success. So you can take the lessons learned, but the next book is how do you actually accomplish your goals? And I give you a roadmap in how to do that.
Okay, so there is going to be a volume 2 coming soon.
Absolutely. Hopefully in this year, we'll get that volume 2 out. And hopefully there'll be some events. I'm doing some outreach activities in Australia in March. And so I'll be doing this talk about what space got to do with it, the life lessons. But I also shared that I'll be giving some sneak peeks into that Interstellar Guide to Success.
Of course. And let me ask you the final question, Shelli. I'm always very intrigued when people try to merge different sides of their careers, and there is a side that is more professional, more technical, but then they move into a more societal role when they interact with people. I find it very interesting, and it's very rewarding in the end to see your passion translated into something more practical. But let me ask you this. How come you decided to transition or to merge your more technical skills to something that is so impactful and so very almost a social science? Coaching means interacting with students, telling them what to do, translating. Is it a necessity that maybe we all feel towards a certain moment in life when we're like, okay, I learned so much that I want to give back?
Absolutely. Part of it is about giving back, helping to empower that next generation. I've mentored so many people, and you can only mentor a few people a year. So by writing a book, creating a webinar series, that allows me to give back at a greater level. The other part with the Forbes Technology Council articles is they are more technical, as you shared. It's about boards and AI and cyber, how space is helping us in our everyday lives, space and quantum. I'll have a future article coming out about space and the future of work, as well as the future of jobs. And so what I saw is there's this gap between the space industry and the general public, and that understanding of how the space industry is benefiting society. And so I really am trying to be that bridge, especially through the Forbes Technology Council articles, where I'm talking about the technical piece, but then applying to how it relates to everyone. And then the book as well is that technical piece of my background in the space industry, but how these lessons learned can help everyone. And it's helping to break down that barrier where people may say, oh, space, that's for astronauts and rocket scientists. That's not for me. That won't apply to me. What I want to say is it will apply to you. And not only that, but the space industry has a diversity of careers now beyond rocket scientists and engineers and astronauts. And we want you to think about coming into the space sector.
Fantastic. This is a perfect time to stop the interview because it's a very positive message. Shelli, I wish you all the best with the book. I'm really looking forward to be able to actually listen to your coaching live because the live experience is always unique. And I thank you so much for your precious expertise and your presence here today at Space Café Radio. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. And until next time, I look forward to seeing you around the galaxy.
If you want to keep the pulse of the space industry, please visit our website at www.spacewatch.global. Subscribe to our newsletters, and of course, don't forget to become a Space Watcher. I'm Emma Gatti, Editor-in-Chief of SpaceWatch Global, your independent perspective on space. See you next time. Ciao.